Hey folks, welcome to Pro Trader Strategies. It's Monday, August the 30th. This is Spotting the Trade. I'm Eric Wilkinson. And what we're going to do in here is talk about the economic data, look at the overall markets, and then finally try and find some opportunities in the market with spotting the trade. All right. So, but before we get on with that, make sure you guys right down there at the bottom, we got a subscribe button. Click on that. And next to it is a bell for when I come on later on in the day unannounced, you get a notification so you'll be able to participate then. Finally, smash that like button for me if you would. It really does help. All right, so let's get on with the economic data across the pond. Not a whole lot. It's a Monday, really not a whole lot of economic data, but we did get pending home sales. That came in at negative 1.8, expected to be a positive 0.5. Now, let's flash back to last week. We were looking at the National Association of Home Builders Index. That is the NAHB. That was the first time we started seeing some weakness here in the housing market. And some of the things that we were hearing coming out of that index was that the home buyer was getting a bit of sticker shock with these home prices really ratcheting up. Therefore, I was expecting a little bit weaker new and existing home sales last week. Well, we didn't really get that. Those numbers were very good. But today we got pending home sales, which is probably where this light bulb was coming on for some of these home builders. Pending home sales right now, negative 1.8%, expected to be positive 0.5%. That is a wet blanket on this market, folks. We're going to have to keep an eye on that moving forward. Then let's get on with the overall markets and take a look at what's going on in there. Let's share the screen here and we'll get going. Oh, I'm not, I might have a guest. There we go. All right. So crude oil, let's talk about it. It's a little bit higher today, and we would think that we would start to see a little bit of spike here because if you've been under a rock, Ida hit Louisiana and New Orleans, that area. Keep in mind, New Orleans, the Gulf, all about 90% of production out of the Gulf for crude oil is stopped right now. One thing to note, we've been talking about supply chain issues. Port of Louisiana, it is open for business, believe it or not, today. One day after that hurricane, they've got that thing up and running. So we aren't going to necessarily see this massive supply chain issue throughout the Midwest, because keep in mind that the Mississippi, which is the port of Louisiana, is a major shipping canal for anywhere in the Midwest, going back and forth all day long. Crude oil, though, lack of demand that we've been seeing here as this Delta variant starts picking up. Keep in mind, folks, hotels, and they're not talking a whole lot about it, but our hotels, hospitals right now are at capacity of what we were seeing pre-vaccine. Okay, so now, especially down in Louisiana and New Orleans, those folks are going to be really struggling with some of those hotels and capacity there because they were already very near. I'm expecting crude oil to start rollover. Another thing to note, if you guys remember the, the Colonial Pipeline. Now, if you remember flashing back to news, Colonial Pipeline made headlines because they were hacked. They ended up paying that ransom. But what I want to bring up is that same pipeline is one of the major suppliers of oil to the East Coast from the Gulf. That's shut down right now. So we could see some supply constraints out in the East Coast for the next couple of weeks or so. All right, moving on to gold. We're seeing a little bit of weakness here as we're seeing the dollar continue to see some strength here throughout the last couple of weeks. It's been a bit dicey as of today, but Bitcoin coming off as it's just taking a pause, folks. I don't think that there's any negative headwinds for Bitcoin at this point in time. Bonds are moving higher by a 0.5 point. I think that's just more a security measure here with the equities at all-time highs, because they aren't slowing down, folks. Equities are off and running today to the upside. Now, is this due to great economic activity? No, I actually think this is the flip side of it. If you remember when we were watching the FOMC last week, all these Fed governors were talking about that they were going to start talking about the taper, which the taper is just buying of assets, all right? And when they're talking about buying assets, they're just buying bonds. And when they buy bonds, it sends interest rates lower. Now, they've been talking about slowing those asset purchases and allowing interest rates to increase. I don't think they're going to do that, folks. Why? Because the economic data is starting to show up. The forward-looking economic data, not so rosy here. So is the Fed behind the curve? I think they're going to have to hold off because one of their mandates is inflation. Now we're seeing inflation basically tickle their target, but the unemployment side of it is not anywhere close to their mandate. So I think they're going to have to try and tease the market here to keep it from having a tantrum, right? That's the taper tantrum that we're talking about. When they pull back the money, the equities usually have a tendency to freak out. Well, today, the idea is that taper might not happen. So equities making a move to the upside pretty strong today. Dow Jones Industrial Average, maybe a bit of a lagger on the upside here. Something to note, though, with the NASDAQ being a tech-heavy NASDAQ, or just NASDAQ in general being tech-heavy, I think a lot of this is being driven higher by some of the FANG stocks, Facebook, especially Apple, Amazon, those guys making some big moves to the upside, while on the flip side, some of the other tech sector names, AMD, NVDIA, Intel, those chip names and the computer software, I was expecting that to get a little bit of a boost here, especially if this Delta variant starts picking up and we start looking at a stay at home again. That's not really what we're seeing here in the overall markets, but NASDAQ being driven higher by those FANG stocks more so than the tech rally in general. And as we talked about with the Dow Jones there, E-mini S&Ps is in positive territory, continues to climb. No real red candles if we break this down into the daily. Maybe just right before I started going on, we did finally get a red candle there, but no confirmation of any type of top here. I think that we're going to see a slower grind to the upside as the equities are going to start looking at the FOMC and saying, hey, folks, I don't think you're really going to start going here anytime soon. All right, so let's talk about the trades that I've done. Remember in Las Vegas Sand, I have had this trade on for a while. I even added to it when I really was sure of a bottom here, but we started getting involved in this a little bit earlier before a major confirmation on this in August. So literally getting into August right here, I got a confirmation of a pop, but then I kind of stayed with it. I thought I got a continuation pattern here, a little bit of a confirmation. So I'm staying with this trade, right? Well, the next day we started getting some movement to the downside in here, and it really ratcheted up quickly. Now, I was still talking about this whole time we were watching these earnings come out, these folks talking about their profit margins going through the roof and how they've streamlined processes during this whole pandemic, and they're actually more profitable now than they were pre-pandemic. That is very bullish as far as I'm concerned, especially somebody who follows Lean Six Sigma. Therefore, I jumped in again on the 19th. We kind of bottomed out here again. I was like, I'm going full Monty on this. I'm more than willing to get long Las Vegas Sand. So in an idea of a swing trade mixed with the long-term outlook of, hey, at this valuation, I'm definitely looking to have something added to my portfolio. So with that said, I went into the September because I'm doing those shorter duration, right? Because I want theta decay help me out with volatility when they're at extreme levels, is what I'm looking at for that. There we go. Let me throw this over here. All right, so let's take a look at this again. This day we ended up looking at selling some September 35 puts in there because you can see I have pretty good volatility in there, right? We're looking at high volatility equates to high premiums, right? And when we are good stewards of capital, we want to sell high and buy low. Well, in this case, if volatility is at extreme levels for this particular underlying, I have to immediately start thinking I want to collect a credit because this premium is jacked full of volatility. And once that volatility comes out, even if you're directionally wrong, you could still make money with this type of scenario. So that originally, I did those for, I think it was 68 cents on that. And then as you can see here, a couple of days later, market really slammed down, but volatility jacked up even more. I added to that position. Now, a lot of people might say you're throwing good money at bad money, but you have to remember that my thought process here is I'm definitely willing to buy these, okay? So I'm not just doing this necessarily as a quote unquote swing trade at this point in time. I was looking at the broader industry doing very well one of those types of situations where, you know, a major headwind can actually make these guys come out of this much better than they were positioned beforehand. And that is absolutely the case, I believe, with the casino sector. So I ended up adding some more 35 puts in there for 90 cents. Okay. Same strike location, even though they were much closer to being in the money at that time. You can see it was still $1.50 lower than where we currently are. Plus, I get to collect that credit. Remember, when you're selling options, you keep that credit. You always get to keep that credit, okay? Even if the stock gets put to you, all right? If I got put the stock at 35, meaning I had to take possession of Las Vegas Sand at 35, well, that collection of credit stays in my pocket, all right? I'm long at 35, but I got to keep that 68 and 90 cents as like a free dividend, if you will, if you want to think of it that way. So on Friday, I talked about this, that I was trying to get out of these. I got hit on some of them close to the end of the day and got out of the balance of them. Let's just say I got out of these for 8 cents on Friday, and today I got out of these for 7 cents. It wasn't quite equal to half and half there, but right at the end of the day, somebody clipped me on some of these and I didn't get the full balance. So I put it in there for a cleanup trade today in this Las Vegas Sand. So that's actually the only trade I've executed today, but there's a couple of opportunities here. If we start flipping through these are going to be those tech sectors that I said there's some weakness here. NVIDIA making a very nice topping pattern here. This, I am going to wait though on this to make sure it gets confirmed, because I want to see the candle drop tomorrow. I'm going to wait to see how this all sets up because we could easily see some strength tomorrow as a reopened trade, and that would break that pattern if we got a candle like that. So I'm going to hold off on these, but I am going to keep a very close eye on AMD. Is another one that looks very toppy. Again, that's the kind of doji we look for at a top of a move. We had a big couple of moves the last few weeks. Therefore, I think we're seeing a little bit of a candle that we can rely on. All right. Again, flipping over to Intel, it's going to look very similar as well. I can't think of the other one I was looking at, but Intel, a lower price stock. So if you're thinking about options, newer to trading options, probably lean towards maybe Intel. It's a, you know, less than $100 stock than something like NVIDIA, which is going to be a pretty hefty margin. All right. So those are the ones that I'm looking at. I thought there was one other one I wanted to take a look at, SPY. If you guys know, remember this, I played it off of this test of the trend channel here. Once we got the confirmation back in here, I went in and sold some puts. I'm letting them ride out as of right now, but I went in the September, again, the 415 puts. Remember, that's right down here at the point of control when we started going down there. Again, when I'm looking at selling these puts, even if it's for a swing type trade, folks, I am looking at it like I would be willing to get long at those levels, all right? Just like when I'm selling calls, I'd be willing to get short something at that particular level. That's the mindset you have to go into trading these with. But with this moving to the upside and those September 415 puts, it is well past the 50% of max profit that I usually look for in this, but I'm riding this out to the upside and looking for it to try and go up and test this middle mark to make it like a real clean swing trade for breaking out of a trend channel and then going back to that mid level. That's usually where we look to cover those swing trades. All right. And that's it for me. Took off the Las Vegas Sand. I'm going to keep a real close eye on NVIDIA, AMD, and Intel for trades to add some negative deltas in my portfolio. I've pretty much covered almost all of those negative deltas, and position is very delta positive, which means my position, my portfolio benefits from a bullish move. When you have negative deltas, that means your position benefits from the market pulling back. All right. So positive deltas, you want the market to go up. Negative deltas, you want the market to go down. All right. So I am delta positive, which means bullish, but I want to start adding, anytime we start making these major moves, I want to start adding some protection there, and this is the time to do that. I think we can find some good opportunities with AMD. The bank sector is not looking too well. Airlines not looking too well. So, you know, all in all, this travel and leisure section that I've been talking so much about, even the casinos, not looking so rosy today, but opportunities if we see some pullbacks here that we're going to take advantage of. All right, that's all I got for you guys. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Don't forget to smash that like button for me. Comment, I'll circle back around, folks. Make sure everybody's clear of concept, and please subscribe and hit that little bell over there so you guys get a notification. If I come on later today and start looking at an Intel trade, you guys will be first to get notified. All right, that's all I got for you. Hope everybody has a good one. And if you can't take that, take it easy.